Hey, it's Tuesday Teardown. So today we're going to look at an Amazon affiliate site, a big one. In fact, they're not just an affiliate for Amazon, they're an affiliate for lots of stuff. We have done, or not we, I have done a review on the Wirecutter before. I've talked about the Wirecutter, but that's kind of an older one that's out there, right? So the Wirecutter was part of the Sweet Home like brand, and they combine sites, right? So at some point, I think it was a couple years ago, New York Times purchased the Wirecutter and the Sweet Home and all that stuff from Brian Lamb. And actually, I heard more recently that it was like on a Tim Ferriss podcast. If anyone listens to the Tim Ferriss podcast, you may have caught this too. But he was talking about Brian Lamb. He said, "Hey, my friend Brian Lamb sold his website, the Wirecutter, to the New York Times. So the affiliate model is, a viable model." And the implication there is like the guy that owned the Wirecutter is friends with Tim Ferriss. So, I mean, he was an accomplished guy, right? Who knows what he sold it for, but probably a lot. As we get into the details, we'll see a lot more information. So welcome in the chat. I'm pretty sure we got audio and stuff working. I'm going to do a quick shout out, and then I'm going to try and get to the information a little fast here. We're going to go through the normal format. I'm going to look at the homepage really quick. Before I go in depth on the homepage, I'm actually going to show you some metrics from SEM Rush. So that'll sort of give us a baseline for the amount of traffic the site is potentially getting based on organic search results. And by the way, I'm an affiliate for SEM Rush. So if you click the link in the description and you buy anything, I get an affiliate commission. So I appreciate it if you do that. If not, you just see what information we have here. So SEM Rush, we'll look at some data, and then we'll look at the homepage a little more in depth. I get a lot of questions about what to put on the homepage and why put certain things. We'll look at the about page as well, right? There's a lot of cool information on the about page, especially for a big site like the Wirecutter. And another note, the Wirecutter and other sites like it, very big sites, they are sort of best in class for a lot of things. Quite a number of things. So not just, their affiliate marketing stuff, but the design and the other resources, the design, the content, the model, the way they're doing their reviews specifically, and the way they're reviewing the products, all that best in class kind of stuff. Part of that is, they have a big budget. They've been around a while. They have a budget to hire people that are experienced in certain areas where we aren't. Additionally, they get so much traffic. Again, we'll see that in the SEM Rush estimate momentarily. They get so much traffic that they can actually test things. So, folks with smaller sites, you may not get enough traffic to test things. You may not have the expertise to test certain things. So we can't really do it. But what we can do is see what other sites have done that do have those resources, expertise, and the time and the traffic and all those things we don't have. So we can see what they're doing and emulate them. And it's a pretty good method, right? You could do that over and over. And then as you learn more, you can, go off script, right? You could improvise after that. So the thing is, I'm going to say hello in the chat here. We have Rose, we have Amin, a few other folks, and let's see, there were some conversations here. Hello, what's up? Alexander, good to have you on. Barry, what's up? We have Duke. Duke's one of the fine moderators. Thanks, Duke. I owe you an email. Next week sounds good. I'll send you a link so we can schedule something. And then Whisper Pool, we have Angela, Santiago, Carl, and Albert. What's up? All right. And I'm seeing some other stuff. And if you have other, I see Rose mentioned something about backlinks for the Wirecutter, and they get links from other big sites. And the term, we'll talk about this at the end, but I don't want to go off the tracks too soon. We will go off the tracks. In fact, I didn't want to show anything yet, but I have a beer. This is not sponsored. I happen to I'm going to drink a beer here shortly, but from New Belgium, the Abbey. I was going to get the triple, I'm into the triple, but the Abbey is what they had at the store that I stopped at on the way home from the gym. So in a few minutes, I'll pop that open when the time's right. The point is something about links and what the Wirecutter is doing is unfair. But you know what? In a few years ago, the Wirecutter started off as a single site with a few pieces of content, just like any of our sites, by one dude named Brian Lamb. And then, he knew what he was doing. He had some budget, but it was like a dude that started a website. So it started with nothing. So as far as like unfair or anything like that, I mean, if it's part of a large media company, well, then they have resources we don't have. And that's just, what we have to compete with. So maybe some people call it unfair, but that is literally the landscape that we're playing in. So there are other things people can do if they don't want to deal with it. And bros, I'm not saying that you are implying that or anything, and you're merely referencing what other people have said. But you know what? We have to compete with big companies, right? I have to compete with other, YouTube folks or other bloggers, or basically anything else that anyone can consume at all, even like going outside. By the way, I encourage you to go outside if there's not snow on the ground like there is here. But let's get to, I'll say hello to a couple more people. We got Brianna, we have Bradley, we have John and Fritz. Awesome. Okay. I'm going to get to the teardown in just a second. So if you're watching now live, please give it a thumbs up, helps other people find it. I'll point out a couple links in the description. I'm doing a free webinar on SEO for niche sites. That'll be this Thursday. Sign up. There's a link below. So you do need to sign up. You won't automatically get a notification. It's off of YouTube, right? So it's not on the YouTube platform. Hence, you have to sign up for it. But if you're interested, check it out. All right, I'm going to start sharing my screen. I'm going to ignore the chat over there for a bit. Mostly. I'll probably ignore it mostly. And screen share. Yeah, that'll work. Boom. Okay, we're looking at the Wirecutter here. As I mentioned, this is a big site, and I hope the resolution is sufficient for everyone. It's hard to tell how big the screen is, and I don't want to bog it down, but I'm doing what I can here. So basically, they have, this looks like a website, right? So people ask, should you have affiliate content on your homepage? The answer is not really. No, you shouldn't try and rank your homepage specifically for, let's say you're aiming for best ballpoint pens, right? I try and use sort of small examples like that. But if you're trying to rank best ballpoint pens, you're better off, having an individual review page on that. And you can see, you should have a homepage that has some categories. There's some branding. There's some other information on here. And we'll scroll down and you'll see there's a lot on here. It's a little too much for my taste, but we'll come back to that in a moment. But I'll just scroll down. You'll see there's different sections. There's a lot of different stuff that they cover here. Home and garden, pets, like any kind of niche, hobby, crafts, money. There's all sorts of stuff in here. And then they have some other navigation things. The Wirecutter, I'll read the tagline. The Wirecutter, not a tagline, but a little information, is a list of wonderful things by Brian Lamb and friends, founded in 2011 and part of the New York Times since 2016. Have a question, just ask. So as I mentioned, it was started by a person. One person that started off as a, smaller site, and they worked really hard and applied a lot of resources. And that's what we're looking at today. As we scroll down, there's the about page, a couple other things for navigation. But before we go into the details, I will share the Wirecutter overview on SEM Rush. Again, there's tons of great information on SEM Rush. It's sort of my go-to for most keyword research. I think, as far as doing competition analysis and seeing what keywords you may want to try and rank for, SEMrush is a great way to do that sort of analysis because you can basically download all of the keywords within reason, right? You can download all the keywords that a specific site is ranking for. Now, one thing I'll point out here is they give you an estimate, right? Organic search. So they give you an estimate of 3 million visitors per month. So that is a lot, of course, but that's probably an underestimate. So because SEMrush uses organic traffic and organic rankings, it's usually an underestimate by, I've seen, by 50%, by 300%, 4x, like higher, right? So this is probably a conservative estimate. And the thing you could see is like how the Wirecutter has moved up, right? So the rankings like jumped up a lot here in January of 18. I'm not sure specifically why. Perhaps what Rose was talking about, like basically since the New York Times bought the Wirecutter, they have potentially more options to get links where they could call in favors and or have similar their friends in other companies. I'm not saying they did that, but you could imagine there's a big network that comes along with the New York Times, right? There's a lot of other websites that they own, and in my opinion, this actually like proves that an affiliate model is good, right? There's media companies that used to sell newspapers and ads and stuff. They realized that affiliate marketing is better than their business model. So they're buying websites. So that's a good thing, in my opinion. It proves the model. Now, as I mentioned, you can download the organic keywords. Now, 1.6 million is essentially unusable. In fact, like anything really over 10,000 is like unusable. There's too many to look through. But you can, check out the full report and then start filtering. This is one of the great features in SEMrush. I mean, they're ranking for 1.6 million keywords. That's too many. So you could filter and just say like best, for example, and then get all like the money keywords, which it'll narrow it down quite a lot here, hopefully. So it cut a lot out. It cut out like a million other keywords that we don't care about. And further, so one little thing we could do that's sort of fun. Let's say we're looking for keyword golden ratio keywords. So we could include, let's see, search volume that's less than 250. All right, hopefully everybody's following along. If you're unfamiliar with the keyword golden ratio, you could watch, I think maybe there's links in the description for the playlist, but if not, you should be able to find it on the channel. So, and they lost my other filter here. So let me see if I could apply these both together without messing anything up here. And it looks like I don't know how to use the tool, which may be true. So let me add one more thing. All right, sorry, I haven't done that in a couple days here. All right, so I'm doing two filters at the same time, and basically we're looking for under 250 using the word best, and boom, we've narrowed it down quite a lot, not as much as I hoped, but let's say we're doing like some deep keyword research and we're only looking for volumes less than 10. So we want hardly anyone to be searching for it. Because we have so many, all right, I should have tested this before. This is live, folks, so all right, under 100. Oh, gotcha. Okay, so 600,000. We're getting closer, but you could play with the filters, get something usable, and then you're in good shape. So hopefully that was useful. SEMrush is a great tool. It's not the only one that you can use. And if you just need search volumes, I recommend something like Keywords Everywhere or Keyword Keck. All right, so next, let's look at the About page. And they have the, normal header here. So this is the same header and navigation that they had up here. All right. So it's similar to that. That's cool. And then they say they support our readers with thousands of hours of reporting and testing to help you find the stuff you need in order to live a better life. That's their mission. They even bold it. So find the stuff you need to live a better life. You support us through our independently chosen links, which earn us a commission. Read more about what we do. So that's the page we're on now. And I'm not going to read everything here. It's a little long-winded, but it's very thorough, sort of the quality that you would hopefully expect from the New York Times, right? So as we scroll down, they say, yep, do the affiliate commissions make you biased? And he says, or they basically say no. They say they test it, and they really want to have the trust from their readers. And if they recommend something because they were lazy or biased, readers wouldn't support their work. So basically, they're upfront. They say they get commissions, and they say they're unbiased, though. And it's pretty straightforward, right? So they keep it fairly simple, even though, like I said, it's a little bit long-winded, but they have all the details in there. They mentioned that they were acquired in October of 2016 by the New York Times, and they say they do vigorous reporting, interviewing, and testing by teams of veteran journalists, scientists, and researchers, and that adds a ton of credibility. So when we step back, and I'll come back on the screen, when we step back and we think about the other about pages that I talk about, and I say, well, you should present some sort of credibility if you can, right? So if you are, some sort of a scientist, let's say you're an audio engineer, right? Let's say you're an audio engineer. So that means you probably have good insight on stuff like microphones and audio, whatever. So, you could put that on your site. So if you have like podcast microphones and stuff like that, well, then say you're an audio engineer and you know what the hell you're talking about, right? Totally makes sense. Do that kind of stuff. However, if you do not know what you're talking about, but you're just learning. So for example, I just started making kombucha, right? I'm an experienced homebrewer like for beer, right? So I brew beer at home. However, I'm just getting into kombucha. The interesting thing, right, is I'm not researching it a ton or anything like that, but if I were to have a kombucha like fermentation kind of info site, I could talk about like how I'm approaching, making it. I'm learning a bunch and I'm distilling the information to, people. And by the way, I happen to have been a very good home brewer. I've won awards. I'm a judge. I've taught classes, and I know how to taste beer and, ferment beer well. And I've made other fermented beverages too. So I have some level of expertise, even though it's not directly related to kombucha. Now, if I was getting into something else that I really don't know anything about, say like charcuterie, right? Or I guess I'm into weird stuff, but let's say that's like making sausage and stuff and like curing meats. So obscure thing, but let's say I'm wanting to learn about charcuterie, then I can say, hey, I'm learning about it. I'm just a couple steps ahead of you. I'm doing all this research and I'm documenting it on my site. And occasionally I make, product recommendations. That's the way to frame it. So as I mentioned, we're going to this big site owned by the New York Times. We see what they're doing, but then we have to take that and then move it, transfer it, see how we can implement it on our sites so that, we're approachable, right? And we have some credibility, even though we may not be an expert on the specific topic. Is there anything about that that doesn't make sense? Let me know in the chat or leave a comment. All right. I'm going to start sharing my screen again. I think. Yes. There we go. All right. So this other review that we're going to take a look at. So again, we see a common header, right? We have the wire cutter, the logo. We have a search bar here, and then the different categories. Then they have their little disclaimer. Essentially, I mean, they say they earn a commission right up top, and they say it in a classy way. And if you want to know more, it takes you can click this, and it takes to the about page. So I arbitrarily chose this one, which was updated just in the last couple days, and we see it's the best gear for building your home theater. And I thought this was an interesting one because it's not just a specific product, right? It's not, best projector. It's not, best surround sound system for your home theater. It is the best gear for building your home theater. So we're looking at this because it's potentially, a great keyword. However, they're taking a concept, a system, a home theater system, and then they're going to tell us, I hope, all these different components that we could put together. So you get a couple cool things with that. So one, if someone's putting together a home theater system, well, that stuff's expensive. Like every piece of it is expensive. Just the idea of home theater systems is a big sort of commitment, right? One would do a ton of research, and we could see, the little bar over here is small. I'm not sure if you can see that well, but the scroll bar is very small. There's a lot of content. We may not even get through the whole thing. The point is, they could recommend a whole system of all sorts of different stuff, and it'll serve as like jumping off points. I suspect, I'm not 100% sure. We're looking at this cold altogether. I suspect they're probably going to link out to a bunch of their other reviews for, like I said, projectors or cables that you may need to buy for a theater system and so on. All right. So as we scroll down, we'll just see what we're doing. So quickly, a couple quick notes here. They show the updated date so that we know that they're on top of it. We know it's up to date. And I like to do this for a lot of my posts as well, where I'll just, if I make an update, I'll put when I updated it. So it's more recent. They tell us what was the most recent update as well. So they updated the HDMI cable section with new picks from Amazon Basics and Monoprice. Now, that's a interesting thing to note. So we have Amazon Basics and then Monoprice. I'm not 100% sure what that is, but we'll scroll down and maybe we'll learn. So as we scroll down, one thing I'm a little surprised with is a lot of times they'll have a call to action early on. Now, the difference though is this is about gear for your home theater. So the reason why there's not a call to action right here, right now, is because they don't know what you're trying to find out yet, right? So if someone lands on your page because they are searching for best ballpoint pen, well, then they're looking for a ballpoint pen, right? But if it's gear for your home theater, well, we're not 100% sure. So let's keep scrolling down. Now they mention almost all the recommendations are available in the home theater, TV, and projection categories, but it's not totally clear how everything fits together. So this guide compiles everything you need in one place, along with some new reviews of projector, ceiling mounts, and so on. So it's very interesting. As I mentioned, they're talking about a system, and they are pointing out you can get deeper information in these other spots. But this review, right, this tells us how it fits together. So they explain why they've divided it up like this. Now, we see they have an opt-in box here. They give you a couple options about what you want to receive. And they don't have to have like a super strong like call to action. It's just keep up with everything from the wire cutter. It's just, hey, that's it. They're not giving you any sort of content upgrade or anything like that. Now, as we take a look, they do have a navigation. So because these reviews are so long, on the wire cutter, most of the time they will have a table of contents, and essentially they have each of the sections here. So this is an interesting way to put the content together. Again, they have all of these, covered elsewhere, but they realized they could put one piece of content together that covered everything that could be useful. You can see that they put some thought, like you would imagine a, you know, a media company, they put some thought into how to organize the information. So they talk about, I guess, an easy way to sort of explain it. It's not as intuitive as I would have thought. I was going to say, they have the receiver, then they have the speakers, so that's good. And I would have maybe expected the sound bar to be in the sound section. So right in my head, I'm like, anything related to sound should maybe be close to each other, and then maybe not. So they have, compact speakers as well. So maybe, they have an opportunity to change like where things are organized. Now maybe they're adding to it, or maybe they're moving things around or something. And one interesting thing, right? So I would put all the cable stuff together. So you have HDMI cable, wireless HDMI kit, speaker wire, surge protector. So that makes sense. And I'm sure they did their best, but perhaps that's an interesting way to organize it or change it up. So let's take a look at, let's arbitrarily choose soundbar. So we skip down to a specific section, and then we see they have a nice call to action. They have a picture of the item, which is an affiliate link. And then they have the name of the product, which is an affiliate link. And then they have a button, also an affiliate link. So you have 3 different ways, and some people are just drawn to different types of buttons or whatever. So it is useful to have different options like that. Now, as we scroll down, you see, they kind of tell you about the product. They give you another affiliate link here. So for people who want the best audio out of a simple package, the Paradigm Soundscape is their pick for the best living room, home theater soundbar. Okay, couple things to note there. So they have the affiliate link here, and then that's a keyword, right? So the best living room, home theater soundbar. That's the keyword, right? So they have that, and then they also have best soundbar for living rooms. That's the subheading there, right? So if you want to check to see if a particular thing is a subheading, you can inspect the element, and then we'll see that it's an H2, right? So it's an H2. I'm not sure if that's hard or easy to read. I'm sure it's small, but that's an H2 heading. So we know that, it's a subheading. Nothing crazy about that. I mean, you could tell that it's bigger, but if you were curious to see if it was H2 or H3, that's how you do it. And as you scroll down, they give a little bit more information, of course. They have, a way to break up the text. I'm a big fan of breaking up the text, and they do it with, their call to action box. They also have generally small paragraphs. It's bordering on the, sort of long. I've seen, I would kind of prefer to have sentences that are, or paragraphs that are like 4 lines or so, but that's just me. That, again, they obviously know what they're doing. They also have these pull quotes here, which is a nice formatting thing. And they, most likely they just pulled a quote from somewhere within the body of the text here, and then they just make it a little bigger, and it breaks up the text a little bit. It's just a little bit more pleasant to read. They give you another choice. They say also great is a Sonos play bar. So they say the Paradigm is their first choice. They say Sonos is pretty good, and it's about half the price. It's a little bit less than half the price. So that's one of the things that the Wirecutter does as well, right? So they give you a couple different options. They say, here's the premium option. It's our number one choice. Then they may give you like, here's the option for someone on a budget, or here's the option for someone doesn't apply here, but let's say it is some sort of a camera. Like, here's a camera that it's the best in 4K, but it's huge and really heavy. So if you're going to be traveling, you may want this other option that's lighter and easier to pack if you're traveling. So the wire cutter, they must always give you a few different options. And they tell you like what type of user you should be. And that is a great way to classify and have different offers, different products you recommend on the same page. So as we scroll down, great. So it looks like I know what I'm talking about. They have a budget pick. So a good budget soundbar. So as as I'm scrolling down, I like to have good audio, but honestly, I don't like to have like $1,500 worth of good audio. I don't really care, right? I don't have a theater system or anything like that. I I watch stuff on my phone most of the time, to be honest with you. So I don't really care. In fact, I wouldn't spend $700 on a soundbar either. 250 is even a stretch. I really don't care about audio that much. So I guess everyone's learning something about me here. But again, they give you a budget pick, and they probably wouldn't have anything. It probably doesn't get lower than that. They probably don't have anything where it says like for Doug, who doesn't give a shit about the audio at all. I doubt it, but maybe. So as we scroll down, they give you more information. Okay, so I'm going to pause for a second. I'm going to come back to the screen. And I think that's key. And I'm just going to highlight kind of what I was saying there. So again, the Wirecutter is a big site and they have a big budget. They have plenty of time. I mean, I think probably purchase and or use most all of the products that they're reviewing. I'm not 100% sure if that's true. It didn't seem like they pointed it out in a very like distinct way on the about page, but it's a very big site. They have professional journalists doing the writing. However, we could still take something very valuable. So the thing that you should take away here is they are reviewing a few different products, and they do a high priced, they do a medium price, and a lower priced. They describe it in, not that like vocabulary, but it's like the premium option, the top tier option, something like that. And then they may talk about, for like another all around choice, right? I think that's what it says. For the Sonos play bar, it's a great multi-purpose soundbar, right? So it's like, yeah, that sounds pretty good, right? Multi-purpose, it's not nearly as expensive. And if you like looked at the features and stuff, then you'd probably feel pretty good about like how it compares. And it's like a minor nuance, even though the other one, the Paradigm, is like $1,500. The Sonos is like 700, right? So further, right, and the reason why I'm pointing this out is you may think it'll be really good if I only offer the most expensive option on there. It probably isn't, right? You should give different options. I have a friend, he always buys like the most expensive whatever thing you could get, whether it's like, I remember I went to a beer tasting event with him. He got the VIP thing. So he got like a couple other beers and a little, section. There was a section of like where no one else could go except the VIP. He paid like extra money for it because he wants to be like a VIP. When when he's buying like a product, he will get the Paradigm version because it's the best one. And like there's something he likes about having like the best, most expensive, whatever it is. I don't care that much. I'm more practical and pragmatic just in general. So for me, like I said, it's like if it mostly works, like I'm usually pretty good with it. If it lasts, like I don't want things to break. So, generally I go for good enough. There are some things, right, where I'll spend a little extra money. Beer is a good example, right? A consumable, I'll often spend a little more money on it. Now, the thing is you want to give people options and then you want to describe like who it's for. And that helps people like figure out which box they fit into and how to compare them. Now, the big thing that I believe that the Wirecutter is missing, at least in this specific subsection of this one article is tables, right? They don't put stuff in tables where it could be a super simple one where you just have like the name of the product, the type of user it's for, and then the price, and that's it, right? Maybe a picture in there. You don't have to make it complicated, but it'd be cool to see in the grid. The reason why is these sections are so long that you have to, I mean, it's like 3 pages on sound bars, and I literally can't see it all together in one screen. I'm scrolling. I'm like, was it the Sonos or was that the Paradigm? I can't remember. But if they put it in a table, sort of like at the very top of the section or at the very bottom, I think that could be interesting. Tables are, really popular. There are plugins and businesses built, solely on like table plugins, right? It's a thing, right? So people say they're pretty good, and it does beg the question here, and I'll reveal something. I don't use tables that much. So we all talk about tables, and I believe it's a great way to present information in a small section. But there's a logistical thing where I was publishing a lot of keyword golden ratio content, and I had a decision to make. It was going to take time to, number one, train my editor to create the tables, and number two, it would take time to actually create the tables, whoever was doing it. So I decided I'm not going to do tables. So I have like a few tables on a few tables on a few sites. So I don't have that many tables, very small percentage. And now that I'm looking at the Wirecutter, I see that, they don't have tables either, or at least in general. I'm sure there's some other posts that they have where there's more tables and stuff, but the point is tables could be good to present information in a smaller section, and that is pretty valuable, especially when the reviews get very long like this. Now, let's see. I'm just going to see if there's anything else to highlight, and just to put a bow on that point, basically, if you can tell people, like, give people options, give people distinctly different options, hopefully across price ranges, and you may be able to, attract more buyers. The other thing, I talked about the book called Influence a couple weeks ago. I know a couple people took note of that. There is a thing called price anchoring. So they showed the most expensive option first. So I'm thinking $1,500. Man, that is way more expensive than I thought a soundbar is. I thought I could just go to Walmart and buy one for like $80. However, when I get down to the Sonos version, I'm thinking 700. Well, that's like half the price from the recommended version. Well, 700 isn't nearly as bad as 1,500. It's still, what I would believe is a little expensive. But if you have that price anchoring at 1,500, you may have just helped convince a person that maybe 700 is an acceptable amount to spend. And well, then when you get to the 250, you're like, well, that's a steal. It's really a no-brainer to get the one that's 250. It's probably, 80, 90% of the capability and sound of the most expensive one, but it's like a fraction of the price. It's like 20%, 16% of the price or whatever. So yeah, and Duke says that's the one you bought, the $80 Walmart special. Yeah, that's exactly what I have. I bought one for like $80 at Walmart, and it's fine. We hardly ever turn it up. It's fine. Okay, cool. So I see some chatter going on in the chat, and one interesting thing is I forgot a bottle opener. So I'll be right back. Ask some questions, and one other thing to note, I'll mention it right now. If you haven't liked the video yet, I would really appreciate it if you liked the video. And I published another couple videos in the last few weeks, in the last few days. One I just published today about using keywords everywhere for the keyword golden ratio. If you have the opportunity, if you're like, if you really want to support me, if you go over to that one, I know many people have already commented, but if you just comment over there, would really appreciate it. I kind of want that video to get a little traction. So I got some other things going on in the background with that video, but I'm hoping people will watch it. I tried to make it, quick quicker than my long-winded stuff. So I got to get a bottle open. I'll be right back. They're never too far away around here. And I think if you're just joining, I'm going to enjoy New Belgium Abbey. I have my fancy Trappist Rochefort beer glass. Any Belgian beer fans out there? Just curious. Hopefully this is not going to like foam up or anything crazy. We're all right. We're all right. And I'm not going to pour it over my keyboard, but maybe you could hear the really combining my interest here. All right. As I mentioned, ask your questions. I could, keep looking at the site forever, but we'll keep going here. Cheers. All right. Randall, what's up? Ernie, and sorry if I missed you if you hopped on earlier. Thomas, Cam, Brianna, Fritz, All Wayne, Eheb. Okay. Trying to see if there's any. Okay. Whisper Hub says you're taking that approach, stating you're a beginner, but you're not sharing everything that but you're sharing everything you're learning. Cool. That's a great way to do. Is it a good idea to include the article date? It's totally up to you. So there are some searches where you'll see the date in the SERPs. If you notice that in the stuff that you're competing for, then perhaps go ahead and put it in the date, or put in the date in your article. All right, and I'm trying to catch up on the questions, so the chat is rolling. Whisper Hub says, I guess if the New York Times bought their site, we could assume that their format converts well. I think that's a fair assumption. Yeah, I think that's a fair assumption overall. I think if you see, here's one thing that you like, if you're going to, study other sites, which I encourage you to, you should, that's why we're doing the teardowns, right? So if you study other sites and then you observe a change, right? You should see if they are, changing it across the board, or maybe they're just testing it, right? It could be possible that they are testing something specific just to see what's going to happen. So that is one thing to watch out for, and why, for case studies, for example, usually if I share a case study, or I try and do this as much as possible, if I share a case study, I will often try and complete it and or get the results so that I know like what I'm doing. So if you're observing someone else doing something, then you won't know the results. You'll just have to see how they react over time and what happens. But like one of the early case studies that I followed, basically they were showing it live, right? That was the style, right? So it was actually Niche Pursuits. They did the live case study, way back in 2013, I believe. It was right when I got started. And they were sharing it as they went, and then as they made mistakes, they would go back and correct it. Unfortunately, there were dozens of people like that followed along, and they made the mistakes, and they had to correct it, which was not really great, right? It was a bunch of people making a dumb mistake that we didn't know. We were just following along, right? We didn't know, but then you had to fix it. So, all right. Adam says your editor creates your tables. It's time consuming, but you think it's worth it as long as it adds good value and shows real differences in table press. So I'm not a huge fan of table press. It's a little clunky. What I recommend is an HTML editor. So right, once you have the format of your table, you pretty much could just edit it in text. So that's my general go-to because it's fast. I hate plugins, and that's just I mean, if it's working well for you, Adam, keep doing it. All right. YouTuber for life. What's up? And let's see. Let's see here. Adam says you spent a weekend in Brussels without eating, only drinking beer. It's like a monk, they did that for 40 days during Lent, right? Oh, Simon is a huge fan. You're going to Bruges in the summer. I've been to Bruges. Just when we were on a cruise, we stopped in Bruges for a day. It was good. It was good. John likes the Leffe Blonde. Me as well. Me as well. That's a great one. All right. Okay, Duke says, is Wirecutter's content model based on epic product lists? I don't seem to find individual product reviews or info content. That is my observation as well. So I'm pretty sure that's all they have. I think and as far as info content versus like product reviews, my thought is their content is so strong and well written and like well researched that they don't have to worry about like not having enough informational how-to content. One could argue that some of that is like built into some of their like buying guides. And I guess they have buying guides, so they talk about how to choose a product. So, but yeah, basically, I think that's right. And Duke says supposedly the New York Times bought the site for 25 million. Oh, just curious, what's your source on that? I heard like 30 million, but I don't know where. I just heard like rumors on the street. Just curious if there is actually like a source. Jay Bonner, what's up? What do I think of native shopping ads along with text links in your content? Sure, that seems fine. Native ads didn't seem to convert all that well for me, just in general, but they look good, they're responsive, and all that stuff. Now, interesting thing with like native ads, it's like for me, it's analogous to, the button, like the price on Amazon, like that's more aggressive than the text links. And most of the time, I'm less aggressive. And so, good question on that. Adam talks about Kwak. It's the best Belgian beer in your opinion. All right, see ya. And I've had Kwak a couple times. It comes in a funny glass, right, Adam? It comes in a funny glass with a little. It has to have a stand. It's kind of crazy. I don't know. Everyone Google it. It's interesting. Kwak. Good beer. Yeah, good beer. All right. Any other questions about the wire cutter or what we talked about today? Oh, and Adam says, "Yeah, you have one of the glasses." I think I had one, but I got rid of it in a move or something like that. Yeah, it's pretty cool especially if you have a few of them. All right, John says, "Oh, see, Adam, I know you got to go to bed." Um, John says, "If you create a title like best product for year, should you change the title to 2018?" So, yes, you should, because I mean, no one's gonna like try to look for old information, right? No one would. So, yeah. Okay, Duke says 30 million. All right. So I guess whoever I heard it from. Yeah, so a lot of money. And that's the thing, right? So here's what we have to remember, right? So Brian Lamb was a dude, right? Just a regular person. Probably, I think I looked up one of his, I think I read about him a couple years ago. And like he had like a little home office, and he was working on a laptop, and um He just built the site, right? The part of the story that you may not know is he was like a a content director at a media company and probably had a lot of people working for him, and he knew what he was doing. He knew how to build a team, assemble content, and pull it together, right? He also knew about the affiliate business model, and he thought, hey, I I understand this SEO side. I know how to build a team, and like I know content really well. So it's like a perfect sort of mix of skills where he was able to put it together. And oh, by the way, he probably had a decent budget to start with. I'm not sure if I can't remember now that I'm talking about, I can't remember if he like sold his, sold a previous company or a previous website and had like seed money to get started with something else. But yeah, I mean, that's, that's a lot of, you know, experience, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So it wasn't like a brand new person. And, it doesn't mean like a person couldn't start a site. Like, for example, Rose is talking about Lukeman, who was the owner of 10 Beasts, sold his site for about 500,000. And yeah, cool. Duke says the estimated earnings is 10 to 20 million a year based on Bloomberg. Thanks for the tips here that I could just talk about those articles. Okay. Optimum Health has a more general question, but I'll answer it here. I'm starting a new niche site, and you are wondering, should I publish only keyword golden ratio compliant articles? For example, 20 KGR pieces of content before chasing higher competition keywords. Yeah, you should. Just, you know what, publish 22 and make two of them higher, higher competition, higher search volume um, pieces of content, and mostly do KGR content. And here's why. So if you're just getting started, you need to get some results quickly. And I recommend, the keyword golden ratio to actually get traffic on your site and potentially make some sales. In fact, Optimum Health, if you haven't watched the videos that I published, there's like 3 that I published last Thursday, success stories using the keyword golden ratio, 3 different levels. Just follow the formula and you should be in good shape. Now, it doesn't mean you can't compete with the other ones, but I mean, if you're just launching your new site, you're just getting started. And the reason I know that you're just getting started is because you asked the question, right? So there's certain context I can read between the lines. So if you ask that question, I know you're just getting started. You need to get the small wins so you are confident to continue on. And it's important for you to just, don't try and compete with people that have been doing it for like a few years. Just start at like the easiest level that you can and you'll get better, right? The thing that will happen is you publish a keyword golden ratio compliant post and then just start ranking for higher competition stuff without even trying. But you got to publish the first one first. John says, if one uses images on one's pages, one's page, but some of the product pics are unavailable, would you still list that product with either pic or image? Sure. Yeah, I would. I've done, actually, I have a lot of reviews out there that don't even have pictures of the product. So there's a lot of, if you have a solid call to action, you're talking about the product, you could get people over to Amazon still. And Duke adds that small wins add up It'll give you money to invest back into content and other things to build into the website that'll rank for higher competition keywords. Yes, that too. So, quick recap. The Wirecutter is a great place, and I'll share my screen again. Actually, who cares? The Wirecutter is a great place. Other big sites too are a great place to get an idea on like the best practices. So it's kind of hard to figure out like certain pieces. And if you go look to see what other sites are doing, you can sort of figure out, reverse engineer how to like write a piece of content, right? So the perfect Amazon review format, it was based on looking at a bunch of other reviews and sort of abstracting out like exactly what pieces were where, and then you end up with something very straightforward, like a template that you could follow or send to a writer. So that's a key thing to look at. The other part is just because you see it on the Wirecutter, you shouldn't automatically assume that, hey, well, they are only doing, a certain type of review. Like that is the only way to do it. So, maybe if you see that as a trend and you see that as a trend in smaller sites too, right? You have to understand how to apply the idea to your own like situation. So if you're just getting started, you may not be able to apply it exactly, right? It's hard to write a 18,000 word post on something if you're not an expert, you don't have the products, like all these variables come into play. But maybe you could write 4,000 words and then like grow it over time as you learn more. So looking at big sites, a great way to get an idea. And I think that's it for this site. What I'll mention is like the video if you haven't yet. Tomorrow I have an interesting live stream going on. I'm going to talk about a video that I published a couple weeks ago, and it was retweeted by Pat Flynn of Smart Passive Income. Did anyone realize that? Anyone notice that? The cool part is he probably watched it, right? He retweeted it, so he thought it was like decent enough to share. So that was cool. But the real story is it doesn't really, there was a time when I thought, oh, if I could just get Pat Flynn to retweet some piece of my content, well, that would mean like that's just the most amazing thing. But I actually understood at this point now that it's very rare there's going to be like one little thing that happens, one share, one thing that's going to like make a big difference. So I already knew that. And the funny thing is like he retweeted it and there's no additional views on, no one cares. I think the only clicks were from me. So it's rare that, something like that pans out. So, to translate it into our niche site terms, like just because you get a share on some big site doesn't really mean that much. It's nice to be recognized, and potentially it could be like a way to get in front of someone, right? But when it comes down to it, someone actually sent me an email today. They said, hey, I started a site. I posted in this this big Facebook group that I'm in, and I got like over 1,000 visitors in like a day, right? Normally there's like 20 people a day. So I got 1,000 in a day and I made 0 sales. Like, what am I doing wrong? It's a lot of traffic, but it's the wrong kind of visitors. So there's all sorts of little pitfalls like that. But anyway, tomorrow, interesting live stream. I'll tell you how I like did the video, how I got, Pat to even notice it. And then he retweeted it